Good morning. This is the summary for Wednesday, July the 10th, but it's actually Thursday morning, July the 11th. So we have an idea that the market is up, going to be up because it's already up 6 points in the pre-market. If we look at yesterday's results, we had advancers leading decliners by almost 2 to 1. Markets were up as soon as they read about what Fed Chairman Powell was going to say, and then he started to talk, and the market went down. And by the time he finished talking, the market had gone up a little bit more and then just went into flat. He did not commit to lowering the interest rates, but did commit to maintaining the economy on an even level and shooting for 2% inflation. So what does that do to our McClellan oscillator? This is what it did. So it saw a small bump up, but is still churning between the median and the overbought. So let's take a look at the S&P. We had never hit 3,000 before. The high was 2,996. We passed 3,000 yesterday, but we quickly pulled back. So let's see if that is, if there's strength to hold and close at 3,000. But we also have this trend line from this point on January 27th last year to September 24th of 18, which would be crossed at 3022. If it were to hit the trend line today, 3022 would be what I would call a stretch target, and then very, very likely a pullback. And remember that we have this gap which still hasn't been filled. Apple did fill its gap yesterday very cleanly and only filled the gap yesterday. I would expect a pullback today, but Apple is up in the pre-market. But let's see what that means. Typically, Apple will not break through a gap cleanly. It attempted to yesterday, closed at the top of the gap, so the gap is gone. We have 8 EMA support. We're clear of the cloud on the Chiku span after this bounce on Tuesday. So where are we headed? We're heading to over 204 in the pre-market, but I still think that the top of this gap, or yesterday's close of 203.19, represents, actually closed at 203. It's looks like 203.28 or something. Caterpillar is up in the pre-market, but came down to test the 200 simple moving average where it found support. It still has the 50 below and the cloud. So today will be interesting. Is this a time to buy Caterpillar? I did buy Caterpillar yesterday at 135.10. And I sold the 135 calls on top of that for about $1.70. So it was my way of getting next week's dividend of $1.10 early. So I sold next week's, not this week's, but next week's 135s. If it finishes over 135, I get the dividend without having to own the stock all the way until August the 19th. So I don't get the dividend, but I get the $1.75 in premium, which is more than the $1.10 dividend. I may do that again today. GDX, I bought more GDX yesterday, so now I've half the position I want to have. We were barely up yesterday. But there's certainly a positive trend here. Without this gap having been filled, there's certainly renewed enthusiasm in the gold miners, and I may add more today. Certainly on any pullback to the 8 EMA, I would look at that as a point to buy more. I'll tweet if I, with whatever I do. WDC, wow, all I can say. Sure glad we've got our full position in that, 1,000 shares, and it is moving quite nicely. Whirlpool finished the day by touching this magic trend line, and we have been watching this trend line like hawks ever since it hit this third point here, fourth hit here. We've been watching it, and now it has come back today to test that trend line and get support. If we have a bounce off of that, we have the 8 EMA up above, which is going to be resistance, but it may be an opportunity to buy the stock and sell the nearest out of the money call. And that's what I'll be watching for today. So I apologize for not having this up last night. Let's see what happens. The pre-market now, looking at CNBC.com, is up right now 6.25, 6.25.